the 4th of July. Woo! Yay! Hello, everybody. That's crazy. The United Nations now claim they own the ocean. There's no opposition. Who's gonna stand up against 195 militaries? And owns most of the key players worldwide in every country, particularly nuclear countries. Pretty disappointing news today. And not surprising news. Some people might say they can have it. 80 years of nuclear dumping into the oceans pretty well killed it anyway. Rafael Grossi. Oh yeah, we got a Poland, Rafael Grossi. Pretty convenient, I was thinking. If you've seen the International Atomic Energy Agency's Rafael Grossi, up to his neck in shield, would you stand on his head? Just kind of a self-explanatory poll, I hope. We got warnings. The stream is only 233 kilobytes a second. Oh, they're going to censor me tonight. I got fiber optics, and I suppose it's impossible to have low bandwidth on fiber optics. Let's keep going. Okay, so how did the day start off? Started off with this headline: Fukushima nuclear disaster. UN watchdog approves a plan for water release. The UN. It's not IAEA that done it. It's United Nations IAEA. And show you that pretty little picture right there. After all these years, since it's been 10 years since they started saying they had 1,000 tanks, and today, 10 years later, they got 1,000 tanks. That don't sound odd at all. You can fill up 1,000 tanks 6 times a day with a single reactor under normal conditions. Multiply that by 12 years. Something's missing from that equation. So the official story is over the next 30 years, there's going to be 2.2 grams of tritium, which is the last one you're worried about, but you should be worried about it. That's the last one you're worried about. I'd be kind of worried about the 30 million one-ton bags you picked up in 3% of the land, because you couldn't pick it up in the rest of it. They're harvesting food right alongside of one-ton bags of radiation in the middle of a nuclear wasteland. Everybody's worried about 2.2 grams of tritium being released into the environment over the next 30 years. Try making that one up. IAEA finds Japan's plan to release treated water into the sea at Fukushima consistent with the scumbaggery of the international safety standards, which is set by a corporation known as UN, which used to be called League of Nations pre-Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They decided to step it up a notch and just go UN. Kind of like DU used to be called DOLRAM, depleted uranium low-level radioactive material. Instead, they said, let's call it depleted uranium. Soon we'll get rid of the word again, call it, it's just depleted material we use in shells. No big deal. Anyway, so they're growing food in a nuclear wasteland right alongside of one-ton bags of radiation. Everything is good. So this is the story everywhere. It's everywhere. And I'm not going to do each story. I'll show you some headlines for a bit of fun, I suppose. But this story here goes back a little tiny bit. International Atomic Energy Agency. There's just one sentence coming up. In fact, that was this year. International Atomic Energy, because we covered it. Says public trust is key to projects using radioactive soil. Projects using radioactive soil. Let your kids play with the fallout. we're the IAEA. We wouldn't do anything to you. We love you. We want to take care of you. IAEA says public trust. What they're talking about is they want to have cut the 30 million one-ton bags open and take the soil that's radioactive at 100,000 becquerels minimum a kilogram and grow food in it, because they checked it and everything is good. Now, who first in their right mind would think of checking it, and why bother? It's nuclear fallout. As you picked up 30 million one-ton bags. Each bag is very expensive, by the way. They spent billions of dollars just doing that. What was it, $7 billion or something? For 3% of the land in a single prefecture. But nothing got out officially. Everything I'm telling you was unofficial, is off the record. Despite all the evidence I got, it's off the record. The International Atomic Energy Agency is not a regulator, therefore not in a position to judge nor approve Japan's soil recycling project. But here they are today. UN is approving more dumping of radiation into the Pacific Ocean. Of tritium, they said. Tritium. Ha-ha. Tritium. The ultimate insult. When they start doing stuff like this, I mean, like there it is, 2013. Go look it up and read it yourself. They're talking about the 30 million one-ton bags, plus, you know, they were dumping it in the rivers and everywhere else, and washed away in typhoons and who knows what. The IAEA is not a regulator. The part about that is the world can't wrap their mind around. I'm kind of confused. It's okay. We'll get there. Just hang out. I'll get you sorted. International Atomic Energy finds Japan's plan. Wow. So wow, who cares? But this is the IAEA, Dana. So, murderers are murderers, moron. TEPCO made Fukushima plant into a machine for generating radioactive water, but the official story is everything is okay. They got the fuel out of the pool, and one of the biggest anti-nuclear authors who wrote 14 books is going to convince you that it actually doesn't look like that. It looks like that over there. When she's doing a radio interview, she wouldn't lie to you. She loves you like TEPCO loves you. They love you so much. Yummy, love you.
Let me ask you this. You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in, saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
Okay, slave, she got to say, I cut it off where she says, okay, slave. She didn't really say it. She meant it, but she didn't say it. So is Helen Caldicott right? Does the building, because like, you know, if it looks like that inside of this 100 feet above it, I'm giving this up. There's a shit out there I don't know nothing about that worries me. This is the ghost of reactor 4. It was 100 times the inventory of Chernobyl. Chernobyl's like a paper towel compared to Fukushima. And Chernobyl's no paper towel. They closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, for goodness sakes. Workers tricked to being on the front line. So they got lots of skilled workers there. The mentally handicapped are working at Fukushima plant, and they're often given second-hand paper suits. TEPCO says they burn 7,000 of them a day, which means you're liberating any radiation back into the environment. But the fact is there's 7,000 people a day on that site. You're looking at a couple hundred dead each day. So that's not real. Mentally disabled are working at Fukushima. That sounds more realistic. Homeless are treated like disposable people. Well, it is the nuclear industry, Dana. They definitely don't like us. Even Forbes, crazy, kooky, batshit lunatic freak of nature, pro-nuclear Forbes says it was outrageous that the homeless are being sold to companies and put to work on Fukushima. And children around the world wrote Santa Claus and said, Santa Claus, nuclear scientists are given second-hand suits at Fukushima. UN official was astounded. It's probably not the first time that the homeless are taken to work at Fukushima ready to die, because in the future, about 30 years, they're going to release, over the next 30 years, 2.2 grams of tritium, right? So they're frightened for the poor people that'll work there over the next 30 years a bit. At the end of the month, they're left with no money. You give them lethal doses, and then you're robbed. Well, you're going to die anyway, I suppose. In the nuclear industry, that's just good business. Official 311 notebook, half those 60 and older should prepare to die at the Fukushima plant over the next 30 years, Dana, because they're going to release 2.2 grams of tritium. Don't forget to say that, Dana. Thank God this shit is just like a banana, is all I can say. We'd be in real trouble, right? Imagine if this wasn't like a banana. No, don't go there, Dana. Crazy. So the best thing to do is get rid of all the evidence. That's the number one rule of the game. Have you ever seen any examples like this before? So they have an earthquake. They have multiple reactors detonate. Throw fuel assemblies all over the town and cover the whole planet in constant radioactive fallout. Okay, so we can hide that because the world is corrupt as it gets. There was a museum they built for $50 million, and 42 entities tossed out the records from the quake and the nuclear meltdown because they didn't have room to store it. And this is the municipalities of the nuclear wastelands themselves, Iwate, Miyagi, Fukushima prefectures, threw out all the records because they didn't have room. At the same time as they threw out, there was a museum that has 175,000 exhibits for the museum, which is a couple of kilometers away from ongoing meltdowns. They didn't have room for this, the records. Talk about vicious, eh? We'll erase Fukushima from the history books, and we'll say it's 2.2 grams of tritium. Pretty cool, isn't it? That's a neat trick. Got rid of 8 fuel pools and 4 reactors. And then said, no, 2.2 grams of tritium. Honest to goodness. A lot of police did. Over 300 police died by 2016 that were manning the no-go zones. Japan, Dr. Tokyo shouldn't be inhabited because in 30 years they're going to release 2.2 grams of tritium, Dana, rather over 30 years. 0.006 grams a year, Dana. Yeah, you dug a tunnel a mile offshore to release 0.006 grams a year, did you? Uh-huh. Ooh, lies keep getting bigger. Can't keep up with the evil of the nuclear industry, can you? You can't keep up with it. Surges in airborne radiation release has gone on for a year. No, that's a lie. That's harmful rumors, Dana. Exceeded 25,000 times the normal levels. Yeah? No. They said it's only going to be 2.2 grams over the next 30 years, Dana. Stop your fear-mongering. X-ray-like images showed how radioactivity spread throughout the bodies of the world, Fukushima wildlife. They were able to physically see the radiation in the animals and the trees. Tokyo professor couldn't help but feeling pity for the trees. The X-ray-like images showed spread of radioactivity equivalent to miscarriages, stillbirths, malformations, congenital malformation. but nothing officially. None of this has happened, by the way. And so don't bother yourself worrying about what didn't happen officially, because the United Nations owns the ocean anyway. They can do what they want with it. Cesium remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. It's okay. UN said it was okay, so it's okay, Dana. Why are you always spreading fear, Dana? UN said it was okay. They're backed up by the World Health Organization, Dana, so shut up. Hey, did you know the World Health Organization is UN? I can't hear you. I got my earpods on. Why do you care? We started the show with Monique Wallace on Saturday, and we got a question right away. Do we really need to be talking about Fukushima? Craig visited her, made life exciting for a short while there, I think. Cesium remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. How could that possibly go wrong? The truth is, Dan, only 2.2 grams are going to get out over the next 30 years. So why are you doing this shit for, Dana? Why do you need to talk about this for? I don't know. I'm just curious. I thought we lived in a time we were allowed to talk about it. Sorry. Fukushima radiation still circling the globe. Levels consistently rise and fall in a 30-day cycle. That sounds like your cup of tea. Hang around. I'll show you some pretty pictures. They're not like the others. This model is based on 30 days of radioactive fallout. I'm going to stop it on day 20. This is French government. I don't know if you can trust her or not, but we got a lot of models from different universities and countries worldwide. So that's day 20. That's 14 days after the last reactor detonated. And, of course, the plume, it never stops, never goes away. Still melting down and adding new ones every day. It was kind of I always get a kick out of this when they use green for a radioactive fallout plume. Some twisted people. Usually you use purple because it's the color of potassium when you burn it, and that way they can manipulate you just subtly. Excuse me. It's no good if it's don't drink it when it's hot. Just my throat's a little. Up to 2,000 grains, and that's the last series, up to 2,000 grains inhaled in a cubic meter of air. Inhaled. And can easily fly from Fukushima. Now we have radioactive pollen worldwide. It's okay, though, because UN owns the ocean. And don't worry, it's only 2.2 grams over the next 30 years. So nothing got out, Dana. Despite what Dana says, folks, nothing got out. The buildings and we covered this last night, they absolutely didn't blow up. That never happened. Number 4 cracks me up because that's the first one they pretended. We're getting a fuel out of reactor 4. That cracked me up in 2014. And Rupert Whitfield Hayes with the BBC done the same thing with reactor 3, by the way. He tried to act all flustered and everything else. That one's pretty. Sure. Look at that. Now the fuel pools, just in case you've been on Mars for the last 12 years, the fuel pools are at the top of the buildings, and the reactor core is actually at the top of the building. And the other fuel pool at the top of the building, there's stuff beyond capacity because you don't have a repository, which means it makes Chernobyl look like almost irrelevant when you look in the scale and scope and poundage. When you look at Chernobyl was brutal. But it ain't nothing, unfortunately, compared to, or fortunately, I guess, compared to Chernobyl. Well, if the IAEA says everything's good, then let's go back to 2019. I just want to talk about the bags just one more time. I won't bring it up again, I swear. I swear. In 2019, it was 105,000 sites, besides the farmlands, that were surrounded, and abandoned communities were all surrounded by millions and millions of one-ton bags. But only 2.2 grams is getting out over the next 30 years. Nothing actually got out. This was just a test run in case in 30 years some of that 2.2 gram gets loose. They can pick up the 30 million bags. If you want to be coordinated, and you got to figure out where the homeless are sleeping all the time, so you can make sure you can find them. There's currently 105,000 on-site storage locations throughout the prefecture, 2019. But nothing got out. Honest to God, Dana, nothing got out. Why would I lie to you, Dana? The question is, why didn't you tell the truth in your entire life a single time? It's such a strange story. For the story to work, all the universities and all the media had to play their part. They had to ignore and not challenge the relentless, brutal lies all day long that we cover, because I'm stupid, and every day we cover 20, 30, 40, 50 stories of the 24-hour cycle, typically, as often as we can. And we never caught them telling the truth a single time. So they're claiming, this is just a fraction of them, claiming they're in a building that don't exist. And so how can you got to get the media to participate in it, everybody, the producers, the editors. This is a serious conspiracy. Why would you go through that kind of trouble for a lousy couple of buildings, right? Well, there's 4 of them with 8 fuel pools. And because they're pure uranium, pure plutonium. Look, officially, though, nothing got out, and then nothing will. Still slowly release just tritium. Tritium's natural from the atmosphere into the ocean for 30 years. It's just 2.2 grams. Dana, stop being so friggin' weird about it. Yeah, but I'm wondering about all the bags.
There's about 60 million tons
There's 60
of
million.
contaminated soil.
Let me turn that up. Now, the numbers I had were 30 million. But if Al Jazeera's guess is to be believed,
there's about 60 million tons of contaminated soil that's being stored, planned to be stored, outside the Fukushima Daiichi perimeter fence. So,
because you got to make room for 2.2 grams of tritium, see? There are currently 105,000 on-site storage locations. 105,000 on-site storage locations, you know. That's what a storage location looks like. Do you get it yet? There's 105,000 of these. Yummy. And the scary thing is they should have picked up around 3 trillion bags just in the Fukushima prefect. But, you know, don't get above myself here. Nothing got out. This is a practice run, just in case that happened. Because that definitely didn't happen. Otherwise, you know, more would have got out, and then 2.2 grams would be a lie. Why would you tell a lie, Dan? It's the government. It's the universities. Media wouldn't lie to you. They love you so much. They just love you so much. So, why am I photoshopping and pretending they're in a building that don't exist, you might ask? I don't know. In a parallel universe, I might be actually doing that, I guess. So today the UN Nuclear Agency says, well, we own the ocean, so yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want. We don't care. Because we're the only one that should care. We're United Nations. We're a corporation like McDonald's. And you got 195 military countries, and in particular the militaries, at their disposal. So they're out of control, right? And Eisenhower warned you, because 195 militaries is the military-industrial complex. If it's not the military-industrial complex, what actually is, I wonder? If 195 major countries and their militaries are not the military-industrial complex, because they're all buying and trading weapons back and forth, who exactly is? I like that somebody to answer. Like, you can call in at 709 589 4406. 709 589 44. I had a little sip of this delicious tea made out in the middle of Alcatraz on the Atlantic. And because we have dictators in our country and our little provinces, right? We're just slaves to nuclear industry. How about I'll take you back a couple of years to this gentleman from TEPCO. Now, he's going to confirm that it looks like this, that it actually doesn't look like that. And so he flew over to America to give a press conference for the journalists. And the journalists all sat there and said, "Thank you very much. We'll go out and tell everybody in our country." And this is what he said.
And Fukushima Daiichi stage, right after the accident, it was of course the emergency condition. But right now, gradually became the decommissioning stage, more stable decommissioning stage. And that's that, as I mentioned, the successful completion of the dismantle of the spent fuel from the Unit 4. It's about 1533 bundle from the Unit 4. And we carefully manipulate the machine and successfully removed those fuel to the ground located pool.
Ground poo. We moved it to the ground poo. Really, TEPCO couldn't find someone who speaks English to come over and do a press conference? And people are, do I write down poo or what do I write there? The journalists, though, with the other presenters, when they tell a big lie, the journalists all blow up laughing right on cue. They got the joke when most people wouldn't. Fukushima planned to release water into the ocean approved by the UN watchdog. Thank God. My goodness. Oh, so glad that they're watching our sixes, folks. We'd like to show our appreciation to them. If you see IAEA Rafael Grossi up to his neck and Shiite, would you stand on his head? That's how you show appreciation to people in the nuclear industry. You put them in a septic tank up to their neck and then you stand on their shoulders. Like, don't blame me. This is what they do, right? I happen to be, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. United Kingdom. Is that you, Charlie? No, kidding. I'm just kidding, folks. Hello?
It's Nick Nobby, how are you doing?
That was a joke, I'm sorry. Is that you, Nobby?
Yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm just saying just to say that I've done a video and you're singing in it.
I apologize for that. It must be pretty rough. I've heard myself sing. That can't go over too good.
Well, if you search YouTube.
That's probably why I gave up drinking like 30 years ago, actually, because I heard myself singing.
It's called, the title of the song is called Sea Life, Starfish, Clams, and a Boat with Dana Singing a Shanty.
Okay.
Did you get that?
I think so.
Okay.
You got a pretty. You
Really?
got a. That's good.
I just thought to say that and say hello, that's all. How are you doing? How's you doing anyway? How's your health and stuff?
Well, I don't get a chance to stop to figure it out, thank goodness. And I'm too busy to worry about it, I think.
Yeah. Just stay positive, innit? That's all we can do, really, innit?
I felt good. I mowed the lawn yesterday. I got away with it, so that was pretty impressive to me.
Yeah.
I
Anyway, I'll
survived.
get on with your show. Get on with your show, and I'll catch you soon.
Okay, my friend, thank you. You have a nice one.
Bye.
Yeah, bye. A shanty. You don't hear that word very often. I actually was learning a sea shanty song on the banjo, and I couldn't quite get it, so I transferred it to the guitar, and then I'll transfer. I got it now, and then I'll transfer it to the banjo after. Because that stuff sounds better on a banjo if you can get it to work. And if you keep it short and sweet, then you get like 100 of them. It's a lot of fun. Okay, back to madness. We're trying to rationalize. Do we need a license to go to the beaches now that the UN announced it owns the oceans worldwide? Do I got to get permission to go out and look and see if there's any birds left after Fukushima from the UN? I wonder what's next. Fukushima plan to release water into the oceans approved by UN. Shut up, fearmonger. Fukushima plan to release the water into the ocean is approved by the UN watchdog. By which media? So this, and what you're seeing is all this major media came out today. Way to go, Grossi. Grossi has some pretty interesting statements. Because the importance of it is you won't hear him say it again probably ever in the future. So you got to get it now when it's happening, right? So they didn't abandon all these communities because of tritium. They're not going to release that for only 2.2 grams over the next 30 years. So everything's cool, ain't it? Well, everything's cool. Why did they abandon their communities for the last 12 years if nothing got out? And it's only tritium going to get out and only 2.2 grams. Magic. It's magic. So these buildings are there's only stumps left. There's no reactor cores, no fuel pools. Each of them about 100 times Chernobyl. So it's really bad. It's so bad that the world's media came out and pretended that it never even happened. That's how bad it actually is. It's one of the few times, probably the only example I got where the media worldwide relentlessly pushed the lie. And it's been going on for 12 years. Pretty basically worked. They should all get a bonus for sure. It worked, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure they got their bonuses. The industry got no shortage of monetary because that's how they got away with it. People are greedy. Japan to get crucial UN verdict for Fukushima water release. CNBC, you're so back. Crucial. Why is it crucial when for the last 12 years we've been growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation in a nuclear wasteland that's abandoned where everybody ran away? They come in to farm and then they run away themselves. Why would you do that? Who dreamt that up? Are they doing that anywhere else, for goodness sakes? You got any idea how crazy this story actually really truly is? Al Jazeera. Why is Japan, and of course all the media come out today just kiss TEPCO's behind, which is the government of Japan because they were nationalized. By the way, did you know you rely on Al Jazeera for truth and transparency? So don't read that story, you'll get your dreams shattered. Why is Japan's Fukushima water release so controversial? Well, if you're a journalist and you don't know, there's something wrong with you. The United Nations Atomic Watchdog, United Nations. And what creeps me out is when I watch the 50s and 60s, in particular movies, when the United Nations really wanted to dominate the narratives of everything. And back then, TV was still wasn't in everybody's home, right? So, some blocks might only have 1 or 2 TVs on it, but United Nations, they would almost whisper it, right? United Nations says, jump. And don't come down until they tell you. Most of the water comes from cooling the 4 damaged reactors. They absolutely refused to acknowledge that that's reactor 4. That never happened, Dana. There's only 3 meltdowns. There's not 4. And by the way, they got all the fuel out of the pool that don't even exist. Did you know that? And because only 2.2 grams over the next 30 years is going to get out of there. Boris Johnson would like to...
Fantastic, delicious. Is this peach juice or what?
Yes,
what's
it
the
is.
Nectar.
I apologize. 2 Danas. This got to be rough on you. Let's get you Boris. So he's drinking Fukushima juice just before he went into the office?
Fantastic, delicious. Is this peach juice or what?
Yes.
I gotta do that one more time. I gotta turn his volume up. I thought it was a bit too loud, but now I realize.
Fantastic, delicious. Is this peach juice or what?
Yes,
what's
it is.
Nectar. This is delicious. Cheers, everybody.
Okay.
Here's to everybody in Fukushima. Delicious.
Look at, he didn't even drink it. Hang on. Boris the monster. Boris, such a monster. Where are we to here? I'll center him. I want to see him drinking. Should I put him like that, maybe? Like that right there. Boris. That looks pretty creepy, don't it? Hang on, I can do better. You know, I could actually do really good if I wanted to. Nah, I can't do it. It's too mean. Let me try it. Never mind. Okay, so let me play the video, Dana. Stop it. One more. Let me go back a little bit.
Yes. Yum. Very.
Yummy. Boris. He removed all restrictions on baby food and cereal 2 years before he was thrown out of the office. It's one of the cruelest things you can do to somebody.
Delicious. This is delicious. Cheers, everybody.
Okay.
Here's to everybody in Fukushima. Delicious.
The monster.
Yum. Here's to everybody in Fukushima. Delicious.
Monster drinking.
Yum. Very.
I apologize to everybody. What was I thinking? Dana, how could you do that to people at this hour today? What are your concerns about the radioactive isotopes? Well, Al Jazeera has talked about tritium. What? Tritium. Get you. Don't worry, though, it's harmless, but it'll get you. Beijing called for the planned suspension, saying that the International Atomic Energy Agency's report cannot be a pass for the water release. No, it is. UN owns the oceans, right? They can do whatever they want. Over the next 30 years, about 2.2 grams of tritium is going to get out there, we're saying. So they're going to get people living in these little boxes for 12 years. I actually threw them out of them when people stopped paying attention and shipped them over to Hawaii, where they made them in cheap homes for the poor. Let them get irradiated over there. They can't afford Geiger counters over there. How Japan plans to release Fukushima water into the ocean, Reuters. So all the world media took great pleasure in coming out today to reinforce the fable about tritium. The water was distilled. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. After being contaminated from contact with the fuel rods, they distilled it, Dana. I got no idea why he would say something like that. I've never heard it referred that way. You can't distill it. That's because they like to boil off water after everybody stops looking. It boils off anyway in the fuel pools for its whole life. But once it takes the fuel out, it doesn't boil off anymore. So now they got to dump it, like Indian Point. People are just the mental capacity of an 11-year-old, basically. Approved levels of tritium. Approved levels. Because United Nations said they can do whatever they want. So they can do whatever they want. Well, there we go. Sorry, my apologies. Tritium. Thank goodness. That's over the next 12 years, though. And you put a fish in kind of a purplish background. Purple's the color for potassium when you burn it. So if nothing got out, why did he abandon all those Blinko joints and all these Pinko joints and all these? And the urban explorers went in there and there's just big containers full of money that people were winning, right? And just ran away and left everything behind. Don't ask me because I don't know. I gotta try something. It's an experiment. That's what it is. We depend on our beautiful reefs. The Fukushima water release plan would spark concern across the Pacific Ocean. So they got the whole world worried about what might happen. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I already done it to you once. That was pretty cruel as it was. Just bear with me. Technical difficulties. So they're pretending they're in a building that don't exist, in a no-go zone, in a nuclear wasteland, growing food there where nobody lives, because they live in boxes, because they can't go back to the nuclear wasteland. Yeah, there you go. I know it makes sense at some point. So their version is nothing got into the ocean, but it might in the future, so they're worried sick about it. So instead of worrying about what's been going on for 12 years, they're worried about what might happen over the next 30 years. That's some sick shit, man. You really think the people abandoned their communities because nothing got out? You really think they picked up 30 million one-ton bags because the only thing that's going to get out is 2.2 grams of tritium? You must be a school teacher, right? It don't matter anymore. I haven't got to worry about it. The United Nations owns the planet. They own everything now. We live in this one dimension our whole time. Not the people that are on the show, obviously they're a little bit more articulated than the slaves that are not aware. Japan gets UN nuclear watchdog approval for water release. Yeah, but they haven't stopped releasing it for 12 years. The numbers are catastrophic. We got documentation of it falling out in every country worldwide. The evidence is it's incontestable, it's unassailable. Oh, me. Here we go. We're getting there. It takes a while. They haven't stopped shipping food at a nuclear wasteland on top of that. The food was banned by 14 prefectures. And if I didn't draw up, not a single journalist that they very rarely mention the story, but this was bad. We covered this extensively. That's why we have that particular depiction to your left. That's 14 prefectures. The food was banned by 55 countries worldwide. Do you know what Japan said? South Korea, they took South Korea to the World Health Organization, United Nations. Or not the World Health Organization, World Trade Organizations, United Nations. And the United Nations said, well, you got to take the food from Fukushima prefecture. South Korea, well, we're going to peel it. And so they didn't take any food, and they went to the peel. Everybody was holding their breath, and people couldn't sleep the night before, and people couldn't even drink coffee that morning. It was total pandemonium. And the United Nations said, you're pretty evil, so you're pretty useful. You got North Korea alongside of you destroyed for 70 years. Well, cut your break this time, but don't go pushing your luck the next time we need you to do the right thing by us. This is a very special night, says disgusting Rafael Grossi. We happen to have a lovely poll for him tonight. If you've seen the International Atomic Energy Agency's Rafael Grossi up to his neck in Shiat, would you stand on his head? And how could you get that? How could you accidentally vote no on that? How the frig does that work? Really? Like, come on. So Prime Minister Kishida, Gross said, this is a very special night, before handing him a thick blue folder that contained pictures of John F. K's assassination. And Grossi later told reporters at the Japanese National Press Club, Japan's National Propaganda Club, where he was met by a group of victims, that he would seek to allay the lingering concerns, slaves, and would station the International Atomic Energy Agency staff at Fukushima plant. I showed you at the beginning, they're not even a regulatory agency. They have no authority whatsoever. But this is designed just to deflect off the Jap government, adding that the Japs would have the final say on the release. Oh, that's so nice of Gross. Rafael Grossi, the human demon. My, oh my, the world is crazy. At least to keep us entertained with the crazies. It's hard to be crazier than Grossi, though. You could release 2.2 grams over the next 30 years, though. Don't release more than 0.006 grams a year. Okay, here's a little blue folder, JFK getting assassinated. So you know we're playing for real. There's an official story. United Nations backed this story up. Fukushima plant ready for the delicate fuel removal. That's the physics.org, by the way. And I put the picture here to show you what it actually looks like. Yeah. Hang on, I'm looking for something in particular. We're almost there. It feels it in me bones by. So the faked reactor 4 was pretty neat. It's what they done internet-ready computer. Top left hand, then number 2, number 3, then the bottom to your left 4. It's pretty slick. So they tore the building down. They slowly leveled it out with the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society. Then they built this contraption.
Using only.
And it doesn't. We're looking for the picture, not. I don't see it because I chopped the video off. You notice all the fuel rods. See how everything is pixelated in the official video, folks. Pixelated. So they're claiming they're lowering it down onto the trailer from the fuel pools above it. So they're claiming they're above that, lowering fuel down into like an elevator shaft to a waiting truck at the top of that building over there that don't exist. That's typical. It's official video right here. They're lowering it down. Down it goes. Bring the fuel over. And they had Lake Barrett, former non-regulatory agency crazy, him and Gunderson, Arnie Gunderson, were in charge of 3 Mile Island cover-up, right? And so Tokyo Electric Power. And they removed 1,533 assemblies from the top of that building over there. The invisible top of the building that, you can see, Like, I sometimes wonder if people actually see all the guts hanging out of it because we're still talking about it. But that's officially what it looked like up in thin air. And this one right here, that's the official pictures of the top of this building here. And they've done the same thing for Reactor 3. So why go take a chance and create a cover story that weird? Why do that? Because you're taking a pretty big risk, I would imagine.
So this is really why we've been brought here. Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion after the tsunami disaster. But down inside this pool behind me here is still a vast amount of nuclear fuel. You can see it down there beneath the water. More than 1,300 fuel rods. Those have got to come out. They're currently 30 meters above ground level. This whole building is still not entirely stable, so they've got to get those out.
You gotta get those
So
out.
this is really why we've been brought here. Where I'm standing is on top of what...
I apologize for my... I don't know what to make of it. It's pretty interesting. I didn't know you can be at the top of a building that doesn't exist anymore. Like, technically, I didn't think they were that proficient they could do something like that. So it's like a time machine or something? They go back in time and take the fuel out before the tsunami hits? Is that what's going on? I wonder. You ain't give Japan a stamp of approval. Go ahead, boy. It's our ocean. You do whatever we want you to do. And IAEA is United Nations. They're like a pawn on the chessboard of UN, right? There's many different little global... The global authority is all the subsidies of this corporation known as UN that has now destroyed humanity's future. Very special night today. IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi told Monster Kishida, so if they're only going to release 2.2 grams of tritium over the next 30 years, what the frick are they getting into these millions of one-ton bags? That's the big question, isn't it? Australia, UN says Japan can dump whatever it wants. Shut up, fear-mongering. And why don't they show us a picture of the 1,000 tanks? For the last 10 years, in 2013, they had 1,000 tanks. Of course, including the small ones, you only got 750 and the best picture out there. Japan has 1. Well, there you go. What are we even talking about? They won. Of course they won. The whole world just done whatever Japan asked them. Japan says, we got 1,000 tanks, so everything's there, nothing got out. Yeah, we abandoned the communities, but there's nothing there. We're just practicing, because over 30 years, someone might have a tritium accident, and you might have to abandon those communities. Does that make sense? Because it probably does, if you try to work it into the story they're using. IAEA endorses Japan's plan to release treated Fukushima water, which is UN. So there you go. That's all that matters. A corporation. Now they got nothing in the tanks. The tanks are actually empty. The tanks were used to manipulate you. They've never been able to contain it. You're talking about sieverts per liter. If you fill up a tank of that stuff, you can't build another tank. And if you try to filter it, which they tried with the Siri system, the ALP system, and the Ariva system, and in 2014, we have incontestable proof they did not run at all in those 3.5 year period. And the problem was they got so radioactive when they done a test run, they can't get near it to decommission it. Because you're trying to gather up radiation, of all things. Well, let's put it all in this neat little package that doesn't weigh 50,000 tons. Because, It doesn't matter if it's broken up. If you try to filter this out, you're talking about filtering your particulates itself, fuel particulates. You're going to have a chain reaction in the filter shortly after you start running this thing, because you're talking about after a few hours, a liter got 2.2 sieverts of just beta. So I can't even fathom what 1 hour is going to be of filtering this stuff. You can never get near the billion again. Why did you pick up 60 million one-ton bags if you're not going to, if you haven't released anything, and only 2.2 grams over the next 30 years? And that's the new official story that started a couple of weeks ago. It came out of South Korea. Now it's dominated the planet. Japan gets UN nuclear watchdog approval for water release. UN owns the ocean, obviously. They haven't stopped releasing it. So they ran away and left these cows to starve to death, just in case you have an accident when he releases the 2.2 grams of tritium over the next 30 years. So they would know, desensitize people to the reality of what they're going to have to do. They're going to leave their pets behind and their communities behind. If theoretically something gets out. Japan's plan to discharge Fukushima radioactive water approved by Yahoo. All the major media, that's what you're seeing now, is all this major media coming out and going, bravo, UN, bravo. About time you stood up and said you own the ocean. The UN nuclear body approved Japan's plan to contaminate the entire planet for the last, they just sanctioned 12 years. This is what they're so happy about. And this has been going on for 12 years. Japan obtains approval for release of the water into the Fukushima controversy. Never shows the picture with 10,000 or 1,000. IAEA chief to visit South Korea to brief South Koreans. Don't worry about the bags. We're going to cut them open now and grow food and ship it worldwide. Japan, IAEA approves Fukushima. This is, I can't remember. DW, major German media. Oh, he got his folder. We double checked everything. Dump away, Japan. Thank God you didn't do it for the last 12 years. Now, they only abandoned the cars because over the next 30 years, they might release 2.2 grams. Into the ocean. Into the ocean, my friends. The A-10 Warthog, that only shoots dual-ram, depleted uranium, low-level radioactive material, dirty bombs, right? Eisenhower warned you about UN. They warned you over and over and over. I take you back in history for a second. It's a very short video I put together, and Patrick Clausen is going to explain to you how you got in most of the wars that you can remember, how they were started. They were started by a false flag where they attacked themselves and blamed the country they wanted to go after. And this is what he's going to tell you, and this is well-known history, unfortunately.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the USS, until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
So he's suggesting the way to get into all the other wars is what they should do with Iran. By the way, we've done the research expeditions for years and years to document the species die-offs, and they were much more severe than we could ever imagine. That was the end of a typical day for me. So all the way from Vancouver, British Columbia, the American-Canadian border, all the way to Alaska, the Canadian and American border. We researched the species to your left, and for 6 years we came up, the research clearly shows this is an extinction event. Not because 2.2 grams of tritium will be released over the next 30 years, but because they've never stopped releasing it into the ocean. You'll never take the pictures to the left again. The radioactive fallout covered the planet in almost every model and studies in about 15 to 25 days. The species were exterminated to your left. And people are worried about what might happen instead of what actually happened. It shows you just this incredible act of desperation. This unbelievable, unimaginable, hideous, monstrous act of desperation is what they're doing right now by claiming that only 2.2 grams is going to get out, despite the fact that is never stopped. And if you go look at all reactors, they're covering the planet. Almost all nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. And if you look at the studies, they know this is a terrible idea. These are unconditionally genocide machines. They're all surrounded by farms. And gas, oil, and coal emissions don't make plumes covering the planet in 19 days that pulses energy every second for millions of years. Gas, oil, and coal doesn't cause heart problems at 11 becquerels a kilogram because it's in coal world is completely harmless. It's a man-made radioactive fallout is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And just one hot particle can cause your autoimmune to trigger some of the 1,800 diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses that are inflicted upon you and your loved ones. 50 becquerels a kilogram in an adult. 50 becquerels a kilogram, 50 becquerels. Say an atom is a becquerel. A becquerel is a pulse of energy a second. If you got 200 million atoms in the head of a needle, you can't see it. So imagine how tiny 50 becquerels a kilogram is. You can't possibly perceive it. And so that's permanent lesions on the organs for adults, your grandparents, your significant others, your children that are grown in college. For young children, it gets into their stem cells, into their bones, and mutates their stem cells forever. Pulsing energy at the speed of light every second. 50 becquerels a kilogram is your mortal enemy. Why are all nuclear power plants surrounded by farms? When they know from all these studies that this is a terrible idea. Because this is a death cult, is the only way you can possibly perceive it. It's the most carcinogenic thing that exists, so why are farms, nuclear power plants built in prime farmland when we have so many so many studies showing this is the stupidest idea possible. Why are the majority of nuclear power plants surrounded by farms? And if you don't struggle with that question like I did, you're not being honest. So at the site itself, you're talking about a liter of water at around 2 sieverts. And they're only acknowledging beta in those circumstances. They're claiming alphas and neutrons and gamma don't exist, just beta. It doesn't actually work that way. So if you got beta, you're going to have equal gammas, alphas, and neutrons. So after Fukushima, Harvard University had some of their nuclear experts very begrudgingly admit how dangerous it was.
And in the US context, we think of REM, and I assume in the Japanese context, people would think of CVIT. The fatal dose from whole body exposure, median dose is around 350, 400 REM, or 3.5 to 4 CVIT.
Delivered pretty quickly.
Delivered over a period of hours, but in that case, death would follow over subsequent weeks.
So a couple of sieverts.
But that gives you an indication of the sort of hazard that you're concerned. So a few sieverts, if the dose looks as though it'll be more than 2 or 3 sieverts over a period of plume passage, for example, then you know that you're in a potentially lethal situation. Whereas speaking in microsieverts is not helpful.
In a plume passage, there was around 3,000 people had to go to the hospital that were evacuating. The nuclear industry is constantly trying to blame it on the evacuation that over 3,000 people died right away. But we've seen evacuations from hurricanes and typhoons and cyclones where 10 to 15 million people would evacuate, and yet thousands didn't drop dead from stress. Anywhere else, only at Fukushima. And the universities won't correct them. There's no discipline out there will raise their voices. They did originally, but they soon got displaced by the pro-nuclear demonic demon. China cries foul is the International Atomic. Now, China knows better. China knows everything I'm saying, period. So does Taiwan, so does South Korea, so does Australia, so does any government on the planet. There's no way they don't know what I'm showing you. There's zero possibilities. China cries foul as the International Atomic Energy Agency vouches for the safety of Japan's Fukushima water discharge plan. The UN vouchers. And look how disgusting. You got the IAEA flag and China's flag, as if somehow this little corporation is as powerful as any country on the planet, or, 195. In the 129-page final report by UN, it paves the way for Japan to green light and begin the release within weeks. Well, the problem is there's nothing in the tanks. They need an excuse to dump it in the ocean and no one to monitor. They can't keep telling the same lies to the people that are working at the plant that dump it in the ocean. And you just need a system where it's automated and so people don't understand what's really taking place. Did you abandon your communities, all these many, many, many communities, because they're going to release 2.2 grams over the next 30 years, or because there's been nothing but nonstop releases? And so why is the world's media coming out and running with this story as their major story? The UN says Japan can dump it because the United Nations owes the ocean. So, it's never stopped coming out. We know that because over 105,000 of these sites. I showed you at the beginning that story, but it was actually 150,000 about 2016, 3 years before the other story that I showed you earlier. It was over 150,000 sites of these big stores. International Atomic Energy Agency, UN, backs Japan's plan, Euro News. So you're seeing all the world's media coming out to overwhelm any dissenting voices. And you can see I got 21 likes. 21 likes on the most important subject in human history. And we're the only ones talking about it, like in an educational program. It's pretty concerning to me. There should be 1,000 people if they're doing what we're doing, right? So the official story has just never happened. So stop talking about it. Atomic Agency, UN, Atomic Agency, and I showed you at the beginning that they have no regulatory authority whatsoever. They can't compel or order Japan to do anything. There's no penalty for not doing anything they suggest. They're strictly there to promote nuclear so they can't attack it and promote it at the same time. Oh, they got birds up on the top of the picture. No, there's boats. I was going to say, it's pretty hard to find a bird anymore. Try finding a flock of migratory birds. Good luck. We've been out on the ocean quite a few times in the last month, holy goodness. And he never shows a picture with 1,000 tanks, because why do that? Why screw that up? Why try to justify that one? We counted the tanks, you've included the very tiny ones, there's hundreds of them. Then you got 750 tanks. The tanks are empty. Tanks were built so they can say, no, we never hurt the ocean. It's all in the tanks, filtered. It's only tritium. It's going to be 2.2 grams over the next 30 years. So. Don't worry, we got your 6s. Look at him, this is a big deal. That's what he's saying, eh? The water plant meets international safety standards. International nuclear industry hasn't stopped pouring it into the ocean. We got entire playlists where I methodically go through the documentation for several hours in each video of just nothing but documentation. There's zero possibility that there's anything in that report. It's just an empty box with probably a piece of pie or something. Japan can finally release Fukushima water into the ocean. 2-year UN review. 2 years. So for 2 years, they couldn't figure out that the building looks like them. That's amazing. That's some serious blind shit. I mean, in 2014, United Nations was promoting journalists pretending they're in a building that don't exist. In 2013, rather, and 14. Because these are 2013, right? The end of it in November. Right? All the media allegedly, but America got 70 of those reactors exactly like that. They don't need to go anywhere. It's a very, very, very special night. International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, told the Prime Minister before giving him a blue folder. If you've seen the International Atomic Energy Agency's Rafael Grossi up to his neck in Shiite, would you stand on his head? I mean, that's a pretty reasonable. Why, if you wouldn't, why wouldn't you? It's Rafael Grossi. Why not, right? You imagine how disgusting he really actually is. Grossi later told reporters he would see to allay lingering concerns and would station the International Atomic Energy Agency's little puppets at the Fukushima plant to monitor the release. They have no authority whatsoever. They're going to station them there. They're down in Zaporizhzhia, they're everywhere. They're in Iran. We have to recognize that such a thing has not happened before, he said, adding the Japs would have the final say on the release. Oh, the Japs would have the final say on the release. Crazy, right? There's some crazy. South Korean consumers are stockpiling sea salt. Japan's fishing union opposes the tritium dump, so even the Japanese fishermen don't know what the reactors look like. The Japanese would have the final say. The final countdown. Fukushima water release consistent with international standards, says United Nations, who so happen to own the ocean. So why are we concerned? Isn't that our ocean? What's the big whoop whoop? The Japanese disgusting media, Fukushima water release consistent with the international standards and safeties. The International Atomic Energy Agency Director General called a review dedicated, scientific, impartial, with the minimum amount of lies, so they don't get confused later. Well, they got everybody on their side, right? There's nobody going to rat them out. The protests we're seeing is for tritium, not what's been going on for 4 years. You need a bass drum or something, you know? Stop that. There we go. I'll go back to that one. That's better than big scary creatures. Hey, get off my hand. Hey. That's Rafael Grossi and Kishida. Hey, look at that. This is South Korea's president. That was South Korea's president. So that's Rafael Grossi. That's Kishida. Does that make any sense? That actually makes sense, don't it? If they don't, we shoot. Couldn't they use a bigger gun? You come down this wicked aircraft and pew, pew, pew. It's like, when you visually see it, it's like, okay, I like my good friend here. We should call the police. Oh, that's right. Get up there, you crazy little critter. You want some freedom? There's some freedom. There's some liberty. I don't know. Oh, shit. These guys, imagine that thing shooting around your neighborhood a few times. There goes your DNA and your chromosomes and your heart and your lungs. No big deal. You got lots of lungs. We don't need no stinking lungs. Just bear with me here. I'll see if I can make this mistake go away. Mr. Yay, Dana. Alrighty. So the official story. Let me show you the official story. I haven't even showed you that, have I? What kind of host are you, Dana? What kind of scab is this, Dana? I know, right? I hear you. 2.2 grams, Dana. Look, bring it. Alrighty, you asked for it. What? So go look up this story. Local nuke tarts dismissed Fukushima water concern. The total amount of tritium included in the radioactive wastewater is just a lousy, minuscule 2.2 grams. And Japan plans to release 0.062 grams per year to Society, Nuclear Society of South Korea wrote. You can read all about it right there. And that story showed up quite a lot 2 weeks ago. And because we're paying attention, thank goodness somebody is foolish enough to pay attention to what the nuclear industry is up to. Oh. And so, madness. So I went all over the place today looking for the parts for the truck. And finally I got defeated, and so I went to the dealership, just on a lark, right? And the sleeve, they wouldn't sell it separately. They'd only sell it on the cross member that is the rear or the front differential axle bushing. And they discontinued it, right? But it's available on Amazon.com. And so I ordered them today, right? But the dealership wanted $957 and $140 for shipping and taxes. And Amazon wanted $38. So I went with Amazon because that makes sense, right? And, it rained like crazy today. I got to get underneath the truck and just verify that front axle. I got everything ready to go to order it. I got to verify the two side of the differential has two bushings, one on each side, and it's in the wheel wells, so it's really easy to see it and see if there's any damage to them. And there's a fix out there for them. It's about $16. You got to do a lot of work. It's a couple hours work, but it's not a big deal. But if you buy them, they're almost $300 a side. But there's a cheap patch out there that I found, and it's available on Amazon. I think they're like $16 for both sides. And you got to do a bunch of hacking. That's okay though. There's nothing major. And then the shaft. Everything else is great shape. But like the video I showed you last night, you got to realize I'm only moving the truck this far. If you're on a level and I'm able to back up like a foot or two, you'll see the whole transmission and transfer case and differential will dip down. And when I go ahead, it'll dip up close to the bottom of the truck. So when you're going over bumps, it'll actually smack the bottom of the truck. But if you're paying attention, right, you get away with most part, but there are certain things out there, so we got to fix that. And that caused the axle to get torn apart on the end. I just got to make sure it can't be repaired, and I'll order that tomorrow, I guess, once it's, because it's not supposed to rain tomorrow. I'll get underneath and double check it and order that, and we'll be okay when that shows up. I got to do everything myself because it's simpler, stupider. Well, that's the better way to do it, I guess. That's what we're stuck with. And if you went through the garage, it would have cost you a fortune, right? We're so lucky we didn't do that. So, well, we wanted to do it, but I'm always fearful of what they're going to jam you for, right? So if you can identify it yourself, order into parts, and get them to do it, that's one thing. But you can do it yourself, that's fine too. These I can do myself as far as I can tell. But you can't, like, when we went to buy the day before, or the week before I ended up in the hospital a few months ago, right, with heart attacks, the fuel pump, I got it for $140. The shops, the speed shops, the franchises, they wanted over $600 to $700 for the assembly, and one of the franchises quoted me, it was close to 1,400 almost. I got it for 147, right? And then we got robbed at the gas station. But that's because the next day after I got the truck back, I was in the hospital with 3 heart attacks and ended up with 7 stints in 21 days in the intensive care unit. As soon as I got out of the hospital, we done a show that night. So UN owns the Pacific Ocean, we don't. They can do, and he did, and they have, and they will continue to do whatever they want. They'll just lie about every facet of the story. And now they're so crazy, South Korea and the rest of the world is claiming, Australia in particular, is claiming there's only 2.2 grams going to come out of the reactors over the next 30 years, and that nothing happened. Just like they're saying, right? They've been saying it since 2014. We counted the tanks over and over, and we ended up with a lousy 750. So it's like, what's the point of having a journalist? IAEA job is to kill everything. That's basically what we see. Just kill everything. Don't care about anything. Don't worry about nothing. And you know, every night I put up my shop. Nobody ever sees it, do they? And this is actually pinned. Saved Whales ban nuclear power plants. That's actually pinned in my chat room, but nobody sees it in my chat room, do they? These are supposed to show up. Save the Whales, ban nuclear power. Atoms for degenerates. Fukushima E equals MC square. With the 2 nuclear meltdowns. And I love nuclear 93 million miles away. It's a pretty innocent shirt, by the way. I really like that one. And we got 20 people on our show, 25 thumbs up, 34 votes. Gee, a lot of people that want to step on Rafael Grossi's head in an appropriate position. I'm pretty impressed. Plumes covering the planet. Grown food in nuclear wasteland. 55 countries banned food for a decade until those people got replaced and removed the restrictions with the pro-nuclear community. But the official story is nothing happened, nothing. And over the next 30 years, 2.2 grams. Everything is in the tanks, nothing got out. There is these plumes, but the Norwegian Institute for Air Research, not real. The no-go zones, but the Japanese official government maps, nope, don't exist. The models of the radioactive fallout don't exist.
Where I was standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
We gotta move them outside the reactor. ABC Cecilia Vega, she's got promoted quite a lot. She makes $1 million a year almost, married to a police officer, and she's currently with CBS. She got promoted, and PBS, and which is where Seth Dort came from, by the way, who's a senator's son, no less. And ABC Cecilia Vega, ABC's Australia, Cecilia Vega is now at the White House, part of the press club at the White House, representing CBS, which is the biggest media, right? Seth Dorn, and then over is up there in the opposite corner. Above Cecilia Vega, very pretty, by the way, really pretty serial killer. BBC Rupert Winfield Hayes, who faked boat reactor 3 and 4. He's pretty ruthless, right? He faked both of those buildings, pretending he was in both of them. And CNN Anna Corinne, what can we say? She's as evil as ever. Evil little demon, that one. Because that's what a journalist is, right? A journalist is somebody, their job is to stab you in the back. And they get awards and raises and bonuses. But it's hard to beat Rafael Grossi. He takes the cake. He's just, a tiny part of the UN, but he's royalty, apparently. That's all I got tonight. We're driving all over the place, can't find the parts for the truck, which surprised the shit out of me, actually. And I physically went to the shops. I took pictures of the numbers, the look so they can cross-reference the numbers, etc., etc. I had everything, right? And we can't find it. And the only place you can get it was a dealership, and they wanted to rob you. And so we got it under control. It's on the order. Tomorrow, I'll order in the shaft, and I'm pretty sure, 100% sure, that you can't repair it. But I can take a picture and send it to a company in St. John's and see what they tell me. And just text it to them. And if not, then I'll just go order it on Amazon and get that shipped and pay the extra. Because it's still way cheaper than letting the monsters. I got the option. I could remove it and run it without it, I suppose. If I have to, but that's not a good idea if you're towing a boat around. That's the point of it, right? It's always in four-wheel drive, see? And it's such a big machine. Okay, well, I'm just going to ramble, obviously, at this point, so we'll give it up, I guess. Mr. Music, please. Oh, please, Mr. Music. And we'll close the poll here in a second. I'm going to be back tomorrow night because the story's just breaking today, the official story. So we're still waiting for South Korea to come out with their official results. They visited, they said, Fukushima. They didn't take any samples of their own. And the media in Japan was yucking it up on the last day, saying they're going to remove the restrictions in South Korea for sure now. They got no way to keep the restrictions anymore. So you know how that's going to end up. I think they're gone into hiding. Nobody's seen them since. Let's close the poll, because that's one of the few good things we had tonight. If you've seen the International Atomic Energy Agency, also known as the IAEA, also known as UN, Rafael Grossi, up to his neck in shit, would you stand on his head? We got an overwhelming yes vote. We thank you for your logic and your compassion. Because that's how you say hello to the International Atomic Energy. Because they meet in sewers, right? They're comfortable there. Yeah, I got a welder, yeah. I do so. You can't weld the bushing, though, unfortunately, right? I might be able to weld up the shaft. Is that what you're suggesting? That's true. I'll have a look at it tomorrow. Kevin Blanche will be in the California tide pools tomorrow, folks. Yeah, we're in Newfoundland. Everything's already scrapped. I tried it, actually. That's great. I'm glad you mentioned it. I forgot to talk about it. I've tried them quite often, too, by the way. And I always used to use the junkyards, right? When it comes to the axle, yeah, It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, good night, everybody. I noticed my last couple of shows, Kevin says he's going to call in, Kevin Blanche is going to call in from the California nuclear wasteland tide pools. That's excellent. Okay, we'll see everybody tomorrow night. You guys have a great night. Great day tomorrow, if that's possible. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Because I got to wait a week or something. I just got a little bit of work tomorrow morning to get through. I'm going to work on a great show for tomorrow night for everybody. I can't believe what the nuclear industry is claiming over the last 2 weeks. It's really something. And if we don't scoop it right now, right, they're not going to be repeating themselves. So that's some serious propaganda. The story has changed. It's not even like a radiological spill at a hospital, despite the fact you got 8 fuel pools, 4 reactors melt down. The official story now, it's like a big pen breaking open in your car and it's inconveniencing you. Have a great night. See you on the other side. Or in less than 24 hours, I guess, actually. Take care. If you make it this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. We only got 30. It is what it is, I suppose. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Hugs for everybody.